Welcome to Behind the Music, the Houston Chamber Choir's weekly podcast. I'm St. John Flynn.
Joining me on this episode is Houston Chamber Choir soprano Stacey Franklin. Stacey, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First question, how long have you been a soprano in the Houston Chamber Choir?
I started with the Houston Chamber Choir in 2011, so quite a while.
What was it that made you audition for the choir? Why did you want to audition?
So I had an interesting vocal journey, but at the time I was looking for ways to get plugged back into the music scene because I had been kind of out of it for a while, the vocal scene. I was still playing harp and teaching, but I was looking for ways to get back to singing. And I was studying with Kathy Count at Rice, and she said, there's this choir and they're amazing. And when I need to go clear my mind and just hear beautiful music, I go to the Houston Chamber Choir concerts. And she said, the sopranos are glorious and you'd fit right in. And so she said, you have to sing for Bob. And so I did. And it was meant to be. And that first year was the year we did a big tour up to the Northeast and sang at Yale, and it was just really magical. And so that was a great entry into the choir. It's like, oh, okay. And I got to know the people really well. You know, whenever you travel together, you get to know people pretty well. So, yeah.
What is it that you like about being in the choir?
I love the synthesis of our voices. It's one thing to work on your own craft as a soloist, but there's something really magical that happens when you sync up with other voices, and the colors change depending on who you're singing with, and you even mind meld, so to speak, at some point after singing with some of these women for so many years. We start to approach things the same way. We may breathe in the same place. We may choose the same colors. We may match each other's colors. It takes on its own life form. You know what I mean? It's
a living, breathing entity.
It is. It's more than just me, and that is exciting.
What are some of your highlights from your seasons with the Chamber Choir to date?
Well, I loved that tour that we did. I loved the Kim Nazarian concert. That was so much fun. And some of the other jazz concerts where we've worked with Richard Brown and his orchestra, his jazz band. That's been a lot of fun. I love the Requiem, the Duraflay, and I've gotten to sing it twice with the choir. Once in conjunction with a really interesting piece. It was like so abrasive and almost tribal sounding, and then we sang the Requiem right after it. But it was like singing the Requiem after that really fierce piece was like this soothing balm. And so that was a really neat memory.
And of course that was the Duraflay was what won the Grammy.
Yes, and then of course we got to sing it several years later with Ken Cowan, and then made the recording and won the Grammy. I still need to frame my certificate. It's sitting over there on a pile of very important papers.
That's so cool. It's so cool.
It is really cool. It's very exciting.
Yeah. But you've also been a soloist. You were a soloist on, I think, the 2015 album.
Yes.
Soft Blink of Amber Light.
I've done a couple solos with the choir, and I've loved it. Two of my favorites were the one on Dominic's piece and
A Dome of Many Colored
Glass. Yes, that was a lot of fun, and that was a hard piece, syncing up with the marimba, and just it was very somehow, I don't know how, Dominic is amazing, but somehow...
That's Dominic Diorio, we should say.
Yes, Dominic Diorio. Somehow he is able to still be melodic, even in this very disjunct line. It was amazing.
Yeah. That's a tough That's a tough piece, isn't it? I mean, you're in I think the second movement at night.
Yes.
And he makes you jump around all over the place.
All over the place. Another favorite memory was when I sang the Et Incarnatus Est from the Mozart. That was a real highlight for me as well.
How do you think being in the choir has helped you develop as a singer, or has it?
Oh, it has. Yes. In school, in college, I was on this like soloist operatic track. This is all I want to do. I don't really have any use for choir, blah, blah, blah. But growing up in high school, I loved choir. And so I don't know, I got into this sort of, mind, track of, being a soloist is all that matters. And so, so I think it helped me come back to my roots a little bit and realize the beauty of singing collectively. And I love singing as a soloist, but there is just something very irreplaceable about singing with a group of people, and especially people of such a high caliber as the singers in the Houston Chamber Choir. I mean, they're all soloist level on their own, and fantastic artists and teachers and directors. So it's really amazing. I was pretty intimidated actually when I first came in the choir, because I felt like I was really rusty, and these people were like sight reading machines.
You did a music degree with a concentration as in vocal performance at Baylor.
I did. I actually started out as a double major, despite their warnings of, you can't do a double major in music performance. It can't be done. And I was like, don't tell me what I can't do. And so I tried to do both harp performance and voice. But in the end, they were right. There were too many conflicts. The ensembles conflicted, and it just wasn't meant for, someone to do both. So, so I made it last as long as I could. About 2 years in, I just stuck with voice.
Did you grow up in a musical household?
So I grew up, my mom loves to sing, and she's not classically trained or anything, but she always had a dream to sing on Broadway. And she jokes that my grandma would never buy her singing lessons because it just wasn't practical. My grandmother is very practical, but she's just like a little performer at heart, my mom. I think if she had, had the path opened up for her, she would have, I can definitely see her singing on Broadway. But yeah, so she loves to sing, and she and my grandmother used to write jingles and enter them into competitions. Like, I think they won a washer and dryer at some point or something. So that sort of works its way into the fabric of my music background too, because I've always made up little songs. I've kind of gotten into writing a little bit of my own things lately. And so I definitely owe my innate love of music to my mom and my musical talent. My dad is more left-brained. So he's not much of a singer. But
you've got some balance there in the parents.
Yes. But they were actually both in band. They met, well, they were high school sweethearts, but he played clarinet and my mom played the flute. And so, yeah.
So what did you do musically in high school?
Gosh, well, my musical journey started really early. I mean, I sang in church choirs from preschool age, and always was involved in that. I did handbells, all those things. I took harp lessons, and then in high school, I started taking voice lessons. I remember in middle school, actually, I was in the choir. I was an alto in middle school, believe it or not. I know, it's hard to believe this high started life as an alto, but I love to harmonize and I had a good ear, so they put me on alto. But I had a friend who told me, she said, you should take voice lessons. And this was in 8th grade, and I was really offended. Like, I don't need voice lessons. Like, I'm a good singer. And she explained, no, you take voice lessons because you are talented. So
Right.
I did. I started voice lessons in 9th grade, and I was at Clear Lake High School and loved it. Loved the choir program there. Loved my teachers. Became a member of the Sound Waves, which was the Clear Lake High School show choir, jazz ensemble, and loved it. So that was kind of my first foot into vocal jazz.
Mm-hmm. And then you went to Baylor
And then I went to
became
Baylor.
a voice major.
Yes, and became a voice major and did the opera program, and did the competitions and the young artist programs and all of the things you do to try to make it in this crazy field.
So you have a strong background in opera as well, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I remember, so the first time I really fell in love with opera was hearing Renee Fleming's Beautiful Voice album. And I remember a friend in high school that was in the choir with me had said, you have to listen to this. And I remember we listened to the whole album in her car, to like a 16 and a 17-year-old just rocking out to Renee Fleming. Not the norm. But yeah, I just remember just being captivated by her. And I just love the genre, the passion, and the storytelling. So that was something that I always enjoyed, and creating a character was a lot of fun for me. I always really enjoyed that process.
What are some of your favorite operatic roles?
Gosh.
That you've sung?
Yes, I loved the sassy maid in La Serva Padrona. She was a lot of fun. Zerbina. And I also really loved Gretel. That was kind of the biggest stretch for me, because that's a big sing, actually.
Hänsel and Gretel.
Yes, Hansel and Gretel. Even though she's a child, it's a big sing for a soprano. And I got to do it with a small orchestra, and that was just glorious. It was so much fun. And running around. It was a very athletic role too. So running around on the stage and trying to keep your breath under you and still portray the character, still sing with warmth and passion, but also you're still a child. So it was a really complex, a lot of dichotomies that you had to walk a fine line between.
Was there ever any doubt in your mind that you were going to be a musician professionally?
Well, it was something I always wanted to do and just assumed that I would do. Like, I never really thought of anything else. I remember when I went to orientation at Baylor, and they said, don't become a music major unless you can't be happy doing anything else. Don't go into music. I know.
Wow.
And it was very foreboding too. They were like, it's just music, it's theory, it's history. And I mean, I love that. I love being saturated in it, but I can see how some people would come in and be overwhelmed. But I loved going way in depth. But there was a time where my senior year of college, I lost my voice and had chronic laryngitis for about a year before they diagnosed me. And actually, I am in the Texas ENT Journal.
Oh, really?
Because my voice doctor it was such a rare case that she wrote an article up about me in the Texas ENT Journal, circa,
You have a famous throat.
2003 or so. Yes. And so yeah, that was quite a journey. And I had to give up singing for quite a while because I couldn't. And eventually I was able to get with a good team of different doctors, figured out what was going on. And then I found Sharon Radionoff. I don't know if you know her, here in Houston, who is an amazing vocal specialist. And she helped me rehabilitate my voice. It was about 8 years from the time I lost my voice to the time I sang in public again.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it was a long journey.
What effect did that have on you?
Even just talking was a feat. You know, as a singer, it was devastating, but I didn't realize how much you're defined by your voice, even not as a singer, even just as a person. You know, it altered my personality. I didn't want to go be in a loud restaurant because I couldn't be heard. Or people were always asking me, "Oh, are you sick?" No, well, no, no, I just sound like I have laryngitis. It was devastating. And I even got to the point where I kind of forgot, you know, just like when you rehabilitate any other kind of injury, we'll say a car accident, you have to relearn how to walk. You have to retrain your brain because those neural pathways have been broken. So for me, even though I had been singing and been trained, I had to relearn how to breathe. I had to relearn how to phonate and then trust the sound when I was able to make it. And then just build the confidence of the fact that my body would continue to be able to support me as a singer and I wouldn't have a relapse. That was a big fear, as I thought I would lose my voice again for a long time. So
was there ever any doubt that you would be able to sing again?
Yeah. I wrestled with that a lot. It was a very emotional process. So I'm so grateful that I had people that walked along that path with me and helped me through and got me on to the other side, because I can't imagine my life without singing. I really can't.
Yeah, you must really want to sing if you're prepared to stick it out for 8 years.
I don't give up very easily.
Now, you've mentioned that you also play the harp.
I do, yes. So I started harp as, I was 8 or 9, I suppose. And I thought every church just had a harp ensemble of 12 to 15 harps at Christmas time. I thought that was normal. And I saw that as a little girl. And my piano teacher was the harpist and organist and pianist at our church, Becky Baxter. And I said, I want to do that. And I bugged him enough. She made me take enough piano before starting harp, which is good. You got to have a good foundation. And then I started on a small lever harp, Celtic style harp, and just got in with the Houston harp community, which is sort of became this harp family. You know, I had my harp teacher, just like my harp mom, and then her teacher was my harp grandmother, which is Beatrice Rose. She played with the symphony for many years. And then Therese Honey and Bonnie Goodrich were like my harp aunts. And I still keep in touch with these people. And it's amazing, you know, that I've known them all this time. And we would have master classes over at Miss Rose's house. And, you know, she would bring in harp greats for us to study with. I got to have a lesson with one of Carlos Salcedo's amazing students. And so that was really remarkable. So
I don't think people realize how strong of a harp community there is throughout the US.
Yes, it's a very niche community, but once you're, you know, there's so few of us that we all kind of get to know each other and pass gigs around. I've always been really encouraged by other harpists that, you know, help me into the gigging world.
Also, there are very few harpists that can travel on a plane with their harp. And so, you know, you always rely on somebody at your destination that can let you borrow their harp.
Well, I think orchestral harpists actually travel with theirs. I've never traveled with mine. I have a couple of shipping trunks. For a long time, one of my harp shipping trunks was a coffee table. I propped up one end and it was really cool. I mean, it kind of looks like a coffin, but it's a great conversation piece.
So do you play the harp now? I mean, do you play it professionally?
Well, minus the pandemic. I actually just had my first wedding last weekend back in the real world, but I hadn't had a gig since March. But yes, I do. I actively gig around town. I do a lot of weddings, parties, receptions. I was the tea room harpist at the St. Regis for 8 years, the contract harpist there, and that was where my love of tea began. So I'm an avid tea aficionado. I'm sure you appreciate that, given your background.
You probably know more about tea than I do. The holidays, Christmas time, must be incredibly busy for you.
Crazy busy.
What sort of gigs do you enjoy? I mean, I guess any paying gig, I guess you enjoy.
The December is always my biggest season, and almost so much so that there was a time in my life where I had to really figure out how to balance that so that I could still enjoy the holidays. Because when you start playing Christmas music hours a day in November all the way through December, you don't really want to listen to it because you listen to a lot of it already. But
Right.
I've been able to find balance and not overwork myself to the degree of not enjoying the season, because I want to be able to contribute as an artist, but also enjoy it personally as well. But I love to do, there's just a lot of fun. Everybody wants a harpist at Christmas. Everybody wants choirs at Christmas, singers, music. There's just it all happens. And so some of my favorite things are, playing in a big lobby for some of the oil companies downtown, Christmas tunes next to a tree. That's always really fun. I love, for a few years, I've been singing in the Nutcracker Chorus, and that is a ton of fun. And you get to hear the dancers thumping around on stage above you. I can only see a tiny snippet in one part of what's going on the stage, but it is so much fun, and I'm sad that we won't be doing that this year, but we'll be back next year. And then, of course, the choir always sings at the Villa de Mattel, which for our viewers, if they have not been to a Villa de Mattel concert, it is just magical. I remember when I first started in the choir in my first Villa concert, everyone talked about it for weeks and weeks. And I thought, oh, well, can't be this amazing, And I walked in preparing, to not be as impressed. And I looked up and looked around at the stained glass and the marble columns and the hand carved, pews and altar pieces. I mean, it was just as incredible as everybody said. And the sound was just as impeccable. It's a very magical place. So
I've always thought of the chamber choirs, Christmas at the Villa performances as being a Christmas tradition. It really is
yes.
On the performance scene, those concerts are spectacular. Not just because of the singing, which obviously is superb, but because of that location. Because
right.
that chapel is spectacular.
It is, and it's like it just dropped straight out of Europe, and it's on this woodland acreage, so it's isolated from the outside world. It feels like it just feels holy and special, and
it's a convent. It's part of a convent, isn't it?
And it is an active convent, so there are nuns that live there, and I think they pipe our concert into their rooms so that they can hear us, and sometimes you'll see them on the balcony listening to rehearsals or performances, so that's kind of cool.
What's it like to sing in that space, though?
Some spaces you sing in and you don't get a lot of give back, but in the Villa, you get that reverberation coming back to you too. So you have a real sense of what it sounds like in the space. And that's not always true. Sometimes you have no idea what you sound like as a group in a space, or the sound gets lost and maybe it sounds great from the audience, but you don't get a sense of that. But for some reason, the way this space reverberates, we get to enjoy the sound just as much as the audience.
You have a little secret as well. It's not much of a secret, but you're part of an all-female a cappella group called
Yes.
6 of 1.
Yes, we have so much fun. And we started, it was all of us were in the chamber choir and just loved singing together so much that we wanted to sing together some more. So we started having our own rehearsals and booking performances and concerts, and even writing our own arrangements. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. Again, the pandemic has sort of put a little bit of a damper on that, but we're figuring out ways to get back into that. So.
And what sort of repertoire do you perform with 6 of 1?
Well, originally we thought we would do more classical stuff as well, but really we do a lot of vocal jazz, and it's so fun. We even kind of found a niche in the Greek Orthodox Church for weddings because they don't allow instruments. And so we've done several Greek Orthodox weddings with just our voices, which is kind of a cool thing none of us would have imagined. But we love to do, Lauren Pastrick is an amazing arranger, and she can just, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how that brain works, but she can just put together an arrangement that is so cool and so unique and really us, because she knows all our voices. And so we have a few of those.
I think one of the things that a lot of people perhaps forget about the Houston Chamber Choir is that you do sing a lot of jazz.
Yeah.
And do you enjoy that?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think because it, takes me back to my first experiences with jazz and just falling in love with that genre, and then being able to do that as a vocalist, but in a more instrumental way. It's really, you sing more like an instrument when you sing vocal jazz, and that's a lot of fun for me, to be able to mimic the sounds of muted trumpets, or whatever it is that you're trying to recreate, percussive sounds, or you get to play with your voice in a way that you don't always get to do as a classical singer.
And you mentioned enjoying the performances that you did with Kim Nazarian, and she taught the choir a lot, I think, didn't she?
She did, and she is just a really neat human being. I really enjoyed not only working with her as an artist, but just getting to know her as a person. Mm-hmm. She actually worked with our group, 6 of 1, also while she was here. And so that was a lot of fun. We got to see her in a little more intimate context. And then I was just so taken with her that I signed up for her vocal jazz camp in Kalamazoo, Michigan, with the New York Voices the following summer, and went up there, and totally out of my comfort zone. I'm this classically trained choral opera nerd in this jazz world, where everyone is as serious about jazz as I had been about opera. And but so I felt I was very much a newbie, but I loved it. I didn't care, because it was fun to just try something new and get out of my comfort zone a little bit.
What did you learn?
What did I learn?
For your voice.
At the camp specifically, or just in general? Well, I had a lot of fun learning how to scat, how to think harmonically and craft a melody in the moment that fits the harmony of the music. I've always been blown away by people that can do that, and I never thought that would be something I could do. But it was really fun to experiment with that, and I'd like to continue doing that, because it's one of those things that, the more you do it, the better you get, and you kind of just, you have to let go, and that is not me. I'm not very good at kind of letting go. I like structure and predictability, and so I think jazz is a really good, almost spiritual practice for me, because you have to be in the moment. You can't think too hard about things. You can't plan out every cadenza you're going to sing. You just go with it, and the music happens. So that's really fun and kind of terrifying, but it's so rewarding that it's worth the terror.
Do you find it difficult to switch between the classical voice and the jazz voice?
Not anymore, no. And I think I owe a lot of that to my vocal journey, and having to relearn how to sing enabled me to build a really solid technique, really strong breath support system and way of approaching my breaks. And honestly, as I've gotten older, because I'm a light lyric coloratura, which is high, I remember struggling to sing a B flat, just the note a step below middle C in college. I mean, it never would occur to me that I could sing as low as a G below middle C. Ooh, that's big time. I know my alto friends are like, are you kidding me? But yeah, as I've gotten older, my voice has matured a lot in that lower range, which is really helpful for jazz and popular music. And so that has really served me well, and it's kind of exciting because it's a new range and a new color that I get to play with that I haven't had as much access to.
How do you take care of your voice? Do you do anything in particular because your voice is your instrument?
Yes.
But it's also your body.
Your body. I was going to say your body is your instrument. So, well, I drink a lot of water. I try to aim when I'm really hydrated. I try to aim for almost 100 ounces a day, which is a lot. It's like 3 of these. So hydration is key. Plenty of rest, which can be challenging if you've got nerves going on, and you have to remind yourself to get a good night's rest. Super important. Sometimes if I'm really being strict, cutting out sugar and processed foods helps for me a lot. A lot of those foods can cause inflammation, which is not good for your body or your voice. Right. So I've noticed sometimes some of my best singing has been when I have cut some of those things from my diet. And it's tough. It's tricky because I am a sweet tooth for sure. But but I definitely can feel it. I can feel the effects. Yeah.
Your life is obviously completely immersed in music and in performance. When you're not rehearsing with the choir or practicing with the harp, or what sort of music do you like to listen to?
Well, I love bluegrass, and I love kind of folky music, or vocal jazz. And also I love anything kind of international sounding. So I love French or, Portuguese, sambas and bossa novas and that sort of thing. That's a lot of fun for me. I also really love whimsical lyrics and almost that, what's the word, that kind of vaudeville, kind of quirky sound. There's a band called the Ditty Bops that is just that, just kind of quirky and fun and silly, but adorable. And I've gotten into playing the ukulele myself over the last few years.
Oh, really?
So I've really enjoyed learning a lot of these fun songs on the ukulele, and jazz tunes as well. And yeah, it's just, I've always said, you cannot be sad and play the ukulele. You just can't. So
that's true.
I feel like it's a great instrument. For me, it's a great outlet.
Why the ukulele?
Well, because it's so happy. And because I had a roommate who was a music therapist, and she had a ukulele, which was very helpful for her as she's, working with patients and all around the hospital. It's very portable. And so I started playing around on hers, and then I had to have one of my own. And now I have two. I have two ukuleles, and I'm considering maybe getting a third. But I use it at work a lot. I work at a church with children. So it's perfect for kids, because who doesn't like a tiny guitar, So it's been a lot of fun in that aspect. I never thought I'd be able to sing and strum at the same time. When I first learned, it was so awkward. It's like patting your head and rubbing your tummy, trying to sing one rhythmic pattern and strum another. It's tricky. I had a lot of respect for guitarists and drummers, as I am still learning how to do that.
Now, you say you have two ukuleles. Are all ukuleles the same, or are there different sizes?
There are different sizes, just like harps come in different sizes as well. I have two harps as well, so I must have a thing for twos. But I have a soprano, which is little tiny thing. It's not tuned. And then in order to play at work, I needed one with a electroacoustic plug-in.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this Concert, which is the next size up, and it's got, it's all got the electric setup and everything.
An electric ukulele. Oh,
yes.
Wow.
So I can plug in and jam out. It has a really nice tone. And then there's a tenor and a baritone. So I'm thinking maybe about getting a tenor at some point.
So do you have a room in your house that's just full of instruments?
Well, I have two harps and a piano downstairs, and I've got two ukuleles and a guitar upstairs. So, there's opportunities for music on whatever floor you choose to be on.
Final question for you, Stacey, and I want you to be honest.
Okay.
Do you listen to yourself on the Houston Chamber Choir recordings?
I did listen to the Duraflay, but only after we won the Grammy, because I wanted to hear it from that perspective. But honestly, all the CDs I have with the choir are still in the plastic wrapping. I can't bring myself to open them. And also, I lived it, so I've heard it. But you're right, it's a different experience. And I remember listening to the Duraflay specifically thinking, wow, we're good. So I think it is a good practice to step back every now and then and hear the full picture, and not just what I hear in my area of the choir,
What about your solo on The Dome of Many Colored Glass? Have you listened to that?
I did. I'm really hard on myself. So,
it's tough, isn't it?
It's hard to yes. Yeah. I think it's also good to let some time go by before listening to a recording, because it's not fresh in your mind. You don't have all the mistakes that you don't have that catalog of mistakes that you made that are imperceptible to anyone else. When you're a little more removed from the actual experience of the nerves of recording, you can appreciate it more, I think. Right. You can listen to it with a healthier perspective, at least for me.
Look, Stacey, I really appreciate you talking to us. It's great to have your perspective on the choir, and also to learn about your difficult vocal journey. You've had many highs, but you've also had some lows as well.
Yeah, and I will say there used to be a lot of shame around that, but I've realized that it's not a matter of if you will have trouble with your voice at this level.
Mhm.
It's a matter of when. It's just like a high level athlete, you know, the way we have push our bodies to do what we do, it's not necessarily very natural, you know, just like an
Right.
athlete. I mean, we are vocal athletes. So
Yeah. Well, look, best wishes for the holidays
thank
and
you.
best wishes for the rest of the Houston Chamber Choir season.
Yes.
Stacey Franklin, thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who supports the Houston Chamber Choir. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.
The Houston Chamber Choirs with One Accord is your one-stop shop for choral joy. If you enjoyed this podcast, help us to continue our mission to grow the esteem and appreciation of choral music by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to our content. As a 501c3 nonprofit, support from listeners like you allows us to continue to create new and exciting programming. For more information about us and how you can support our work, please visit HoustonChamberChoir.org/give.